What'd you say? You could do that. That is one of the things you have the right to do. I'll pretend like I don't. I've just squinted. Maybe that's how that mistake got in there.
Okay.
What's that?
I don't know what they do.
Yeah, he goes to Starbucks.
For real, it says that?
Oh, man.
The secret's out.
You don't want to know it's him.
What's up, Yum Yum?
Councilman, did you want to do that? We have one random one, that Neff Road one. Do you want to do that one first and knock it
we'll do
out?
that one first.
Okay, yeah.
I have none. Me either. That campaign going on.
Man, I was canvassing all weekend. Trying to go this whole week. I ain't registered, man.
This one.
This week.
I see the yellow and black outside. I see the outside. I see some of yours out.
This one.
I see some up on Kens, man. I see
I
some.
got one on Kansas, but I didn't get that from the parade. That was just only one.
Oh, I was like, oh, yeah.
No, I ain't put up. You know, I thought about it. I said, fuck this.
Really good. I mean, really
I thought about it a few times. I said,
Get it rolling.
I might say if I have to run again.
You know them?
I'm gonna put something at the polls. That's all.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Okay. I think that's everything.
You got a form?
And there's this. This one. And then this is the list that's being attached to all of those pieces.
Only not touched. Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
How you doing, man? Crazy time, man.
It's the bottom one.
Sorry, I moved you over. Did you want a copy of this? This is what I'm handing out to them.
Yeah, I'll take a copy of yours.
Okay.
Good morning. Madam Clerk, are these mics? Okay. My question is answered. Good morning. Today is September 29th, 2025. I'm calling the Municipal Services and Properties Committee to order. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Bishop.
Here.
Star.
Present.
Hairston.
Here.
Gray. Here. Casey.
Present.
Kelly. Morgan. Mr. Chairman, you have the floor.
Thank you. Sorry about the late start. Director, we're going to start with, what numbers? What number we're going to start?
1078.
We're going to start the morning off with ordinance number 1078, 2025. It's by council members, by Council Valencia, Bishop, and Griffin, by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend the title and section 1 and 11 of ordinance number 671, 2025, passed June 2nd, 2025, relating to giving consent to the County of Cuyahoga for resurfacing of Neff Road, and to supplement the ordinance by adding new section 6A relating to pedestrian facilities. Okay, Director.
Mr. Chairman, so as mentioned, this relates to the Neff Road resurfacing project, which is a county project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Director, just regarding the funds in the legislative summary, it's got the estimated cost of $511,914. Is that the total cost of the project? You're asking for $100,000. Well, we don't know what you're asking for.
Right, we don't know the cost of what the under the bridge improvements are, but I'd say it's about 50 grand. It's railings and it's concrete. It's sidewalk work and railings that are underneath the bridge. And so again, yeah, we don't have an exact cost. It hasn't been bid out, but it's probably around 50 or so grand.
And then, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Director, what if that estimate comes back at $250,000?
We can always choose not to do the work. We can always do the work through the chairman and the councilman as a separate city project, but we should get better pricing if it's rolled into this bigger project.
You believe it won't be more than, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Director, you believe it won't be more than $50,000?
Yes, and if you wish to cap it, that's fine.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add an amendment. Let's see where we go with it. I guess unless there's a better place, under section 3 and subsection 6B, the cost of this project shall not exceed, I would say, $65,000.
Okay,
Where, attorney?
yes, the law department's here.
Yeah.
Okay, Councilman Casey has offered amendment to ordinance number 1078, 2025. Councilman Casey, you want to read that amendment aloud?
The cost of this total project,
The addition, the amendment, the scope identified by the amendment.
okay, so the scope identified by the amendment shall not exceed $65,000.
Okay, the law department, do you have that?
Can you read it one more time? Can you hear me? The
Can you read it one more time, Councilman?
The scope of the
The
project.
scope of the project, the amended project shall not exceed $65,000.
So the scope identified by the amendment
Right.
shall not exceed $65,000.
I got it.
Thank you.
All right, so Councilman Casey has offered an amendment in section 3, section 6B, that the scope of the amendment,
The scope identified by the amendment.
scope identified by the amendment will not exceed $65,000. Is there a second on that? Councilman Harrison seconds it? Yes. Is there any discussion? All right, those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, the ayes have it. All right, so is there any questions on ordinance number 1078, 2025 as amended?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Harrison.
Thank you. So I'm clear, Director, through the chair, we're starting at the very front of the bridge when you come off of that, it's Chardon and St. Clair, correct? That we're going down.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Through the chairman of the councilman.
All right, so we need to make sure this is, because 410 comes up to the bridge area, to make sure that we include 410 on this as well. All right, and then
Okay.
please add me to the ordinance because this includes both wards. Also, okay, I'm glad to see this. I know I've been talking to Commissioner Sapolsky for a while. I think I mentioned I've seen emails over the past. You know, right now we have this piece of concrete is laying next to the railings that's there. I've got so many calls and emails from folks. I've sent many to your team over the years, just about the conditions that exist there. We tried to get some help from CSX, but we were really not successful. Getting some help to stabilize and do some work at that bridge. The scope work includes some enhancements to the bridge itself, like the pillars. Those are crumbling, they're cracking. I mean, it is really bad. The bridge itself.
So through the chairman of the councilman, we don't have the ability to do any work on any of the railroad bridges, including this one. So this will be all the improvements that are in the public right-of-way that are not part of the bridge structure. Separately, though, Assistant Director Chambers and Manager Swatowski, they've been working with both railroads for improvements around the city. I don't know that I have the information in the front of my head about what may be the future improvements at this bridge, but I know that we are having some success at various locations around the city with improvements.
All right, great. Thank you. I'm going to reach out to our congresswoman again as well. Again, this is something that we've been, talking with our city folks about for years now, with the conditions that exist here on F Road. So I'm glad the county, our county council person, Mr. Hauser, along with Mr. Dever, realized that this was a need. I believe I've complained to them as well over the years and months about the conditions of this road. So thank you, Mr. Chair. As always, just make sure the team is added to this. This includes all neighborhoods as well. And it's an ordinance I'm part of.
All right, thank you, Councilman Harrison. Are there any other questions on ordinance number 1078, 2025 as amended? Seeing no further questions, ordinance 1078, 2025 is approved. Thank you. Please sign. All right. Director, you want to start your presentation now? This is on all of the remaining ordinances, right?
Yes, sir. So today we're here to seek approval from council on an abbreviated list of projects that will be undertaken in 2025 and explain the differences between what was presented in April and what we have today on this list. And I do have the Director of Finance here as this relates to the ordinances that were taken through Finance Committee last Monday. And our 2025 project list matches up with the ordinances that Finance Department took through Finance Committee last Monday.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, This, I'm not going to go through the whole presentation, but you'll note that this is the same presentation that we had back in April. And the reason is that I want to make it clear to council that this is really a continuation of what was presented to this committee back in April. We did introduce legislation to move forward with this full list back in May, and that legislation is being heard today at the Municipal Services and Properties Committee. So this is really just a continuation of what was presented back in April to this committee. It was informational, there was no vote. I wanted to go to this slide just to remind folks what the eligibility is. What is an eligible capital project? Not everything qualifies, but if it relates to a facility or a park, new construction, expansion, renovation, or replacement of an existing facility, that can include engineering costs, architectural costs, and the services needed to complete the project. It could be for the purchase of major equipment, which could be vehicles, it could be equipment needed by public safety, and then also major maintenance or rehabilitation projects that are considered capital maintenance. So if you're replacing, an easy example would be if you're replacing light bulbs at a rec center, that does not qualify as a capital maintenance, but if you replace the light fixture that the bulb is in, that could qualify as capital maintenance if it has a useful life of at least 10 years. So that's just a little recap on what's eligible. And there are many different bond types that the city utilizes. Typically for capital projects, for the Office of Capital Projects, these are the ones that are most likely to end up in legislation. Facility bonds, which relate to everything from City Hall to our garages. We have recreation bonds, which includes parks, but also rec centers. So rec centers fall under recreation bonds. Road and bridge bonds, which most of you are probably most familiar with. It would be for road and bridge projects, as well as things like the 50/50 sidewalk program, tree damage sidewalk program. And then we also often have a cemetery bond issuance that relates, obviously specific to cemeteries. There's other types of bonds that don't relate to us particularly or the general fund. There's special bonds for the airports or utilities, but those are separate and sort of a different type of improvement that doesn't relate to the general fund. So just a reminder also about the capital improvement plan selection process. We start by soliciting input from the departments as well as City Council. For City Council this year, rolling into next year's CIP, your deadline, I believe, is the end of this month, in an effort to give us some time to really analyze those projects that you're putting forward. We do the same thing with departments. They're about to get an email today with a request for improvements that would impact their departments. Then the capital, the team in capital projects works to sort through that list, get good cost estimates, and make some recommendations for prioritizing those projects. And there'll be a slide here in a second to talk about how we prioritize those projects. Then we meet with the Capital Improvement Plan Committee, which is led by Chief Tewin, and it includes, Chief Tewin, it includes Chief of Integrated Development, Director of Sustainability, Director of Planning, Director of Capital Projects, and then obviously the Finance Department. And then through that committee, we come up with a final proposed capital improvement plan that we then present to council, get comments, and finalize the capital improvement plan. Now, going forward, what you're going to see is we're going to come to council at the beginning of the year with a proposed list of projects, and then at the end of the year, you'll have the finance department coming to the table for an ordinance seeking to sell bonds to finance those projects. And so we're going to decouple that process starting next year. And we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But you will see me back before council at the beginning of next year. I'm hoping for January. We just have to take into account we'll have some, new council members, new wards, all that kind of stuff, which might take a little extra time. I wanted to highlight this slide just to show that, the capital improvements do hit every corner of the city. Now the airport takes up the far southwest corner, but you can see that between roads and other types of improvements, the whole city benefits from improvement projects. And then I'm going to skip this slide because the numbers did adjust. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to go through before I refer you to the handout that was given to you. I'd like to go through this handout to show you that what we propose to fund in 1 year, 2025, is now being split between funding request in 2025, if you look at this sheet, and what will be rolled over into what we're calling the 2025 carryover request. The need for this is basically because the change in how we're financing capital projects starting next year caused us to look at which projects we wanted to fund this year, meaning we can get these projects encumbered, we could get the contract in place and encumbered, or we can actually purchase items that could be purchased on here, such as vehicles or the contracts for, say, the fire alarms that are on the list. And that's how we split between the 2025 request and the 2020 carryover request. And if a project in your ward is on the 2025 carryover request list, then the intention is that those items will remain on the 2026 capital improvement plan list, in addition to additional projects that were identified for 2026 or will be identified for 2026. And the legislation that we have, the dollar amounts match what you see in the spreadsheets here. So for recreation facilities, the 3 projects identified for funding this year are the Lonnie Burton Recreation Center, the fire alarm replacement at Alexander Hamilton, and the rec center kitchen upgrades, and that's $6.280 million. If you flip to page 2, these are the public facility projects. The ones that are highlighted in yellow are proposed for 2025, which are the EMS base furniture, the the EMS base furniture, police ballistic vests, turnout gear, police headquarters, and a reminder, this has always been the final payment that the city puts towards moving furniture, AV security and whatnot that's outside of the developer's contract. The new SWAT headquarters, which was $7.5 million. The fire headquarters basement, the firehouse appliances, and then the public facilities fire alarm replacements, which is all totals up to $12,739,000. If you flip to page 3, please. These are the road and bridge projects that we're requesting for 2025. That includes the 50/50 Cleveland Division of Water Streets Program, the tree damage sidewalk program, the general engineering services, street resurfacing. This is the additional $8 million that council requested to put towards residential resurfacing. We've already spent this money. It's just a recoup through bond sales. Then we have $1 million for major bridge repair. The next 3 are purchases for Division of Streets. controller cabinets, pavement erasing machines, and then barricades and cones. The next one is crack sealing. The next one is Morgana Run Trail Extension. And the next one is the North Marginal Connector Trail. And those projects add up to the $13,045,000. If you flip to page 5, the light vehicles will be in the amount of $2,690,000. Heavy vehicles will be in the amount of $1,290,000. Cemetery projects, we tabled that legislation. Our one project will be carried over into next year. And so you could see that our grand total is the $36,044,000, and it's basically a half and half split between what gets funded this year and what gets carried over into next year. We do, as always, have one piece of legislation for each type of bond, and that's a requirement in the state of Ohio. And our bond council, reviews all the projects, make sure that everything is eligible for bond funding as a capital project. So, Councilman, with that, I'd like to pause for questions about the projects. And answer questions to see, to make sure we're all on the same page.
Okay, Director, first let me get a couple questions, just with the numbers here. So for the things that will be funded in 2025, do we have a total on that?
Yes, sir. If you look at the last page of the handout, which is page 5, yes.
And then we're going to move 36,587 to next year, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, okay.
And Councilman, we might want to share with the rest of the table that we've had many meetings with yourself and your staff and Council President to get to this point. And so while every council member might not be aware of those meetings, I just wanted to reference that we've had, many meetings leading up to this.
Okay, so can we hear from the Director of Finance briefly for the explanation of why we are funding part of the CIP plan, part of it in 2025, and we're going to move part of it to 2026. Can you explain to the committee why that's the case and what we're going to do moving forward?
Sure. So through the chair to the committee, first off, I want to thank several council members who came to workshops over the summer to talk about fundamental changes we want to make to the debt program. I also am open to meet with the rest of the council members. We had to be very careful about making sure, because these were workshops and they weren't public, so we wanted to make sure that we could exchange ideas openly with each other, council and administration working together. So if there's any council members that would like to meet and see that presentation, we can go over that. I'd be happy to do that. But just had to be careful not to have a quorum for those meetings. So anyway, we're looking to change the way that we borrow. Normally what we would have done is when Director DeRose had given us $76 million CIP, normal process would have been to go out, borrow the $76 million right away, and then go out and he would spend those funds, or MOCAP would spend those funds over time. So what we're trying to do is better align the borrowing with the spending and with the actual construction and the progress on the contracts. So after meetings with council members and with MOCAP, finance asked MOCAP, what are you guys actually going to spend this year, or what are you actually going to have in executed contracts? So we were able to whittle that $76 million down to $36,044,000. So we're only going to go out this year and borrow for what's what's actually going to be executed. So projects we expect to either start or get under contract this year. The remainder of them will roll into the CIP. So part of the new process will also be, at the beginning of the year, as Director DeRosa mentioned, we're going to bring you a formal CIP. We'll roll these projects into that CIP in January for you all to review, and then we'll ask for a formal vote on that CIP. And then basically use cash on hand to fund those projects. And then at the end of the year, we'll get the borrowing authority to just borrow for what we're executing in terms of the contracts. So that's the general idea with the plan. And I can confirm that the $36,044,000 matches with the bond legislation you all approved. The only difference, the bond legislation will add up to $40 million. We add a little bit for cost of issuance because we have to pay the rating agencies, our financial advisors, that sort of thing. So there's a little bit of a cushion in there. But the amount of the projects that we're going to borrow for matches Director DeRosa's sheet at the $36,044,000.
Okay, so, and this question is for either of you. So the projects that we're going to kick forward to 2026, that was slated for 2025, how will we handle those projects on top of the projects that we're going to do for 2026 also? Can you speak to that, Director?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I can speak to that. In a traditional year, I would say that would be difficult to do because we have a list of needs, whether they're roadway projects that are planned for a particular year through the state or NOACA, and it has to happen that year with our match, or a facility that just needs the improvement. But what we're doing now with the Department of Finance is we're changing our outlook to only having projects on the list that we can do in that year, whereas currently we borrow in 1 year and we spend it in the next year. And so by making that switch, our projected projects for 2026 are going to be less because the only ones for 26 that stays on the list will be those that we can enter into contracts and execute that year. And so I'm not saying that it's going to be easy to digest this $36.5 million rollover plus a new slate of projects, but it is much more manageable because certain projects don't need to be on next year's list because they were really projects that needed money in 2027. So this is a change of paradigm, a change of looking at when we put project lists before council based upon when we can enter into those contracts. And so this happens to be the year that we're making that switch. So things are a little bit out of the ordinary, but that'll allow our project list next year to be somewhat manageable. We'll still have to make hard decisions about what stays on the list, but it'll be somewhat manageable.
Okay, thank you for that, Director. So, Director of Finance, can you share with the committee this new change? Can you share with the committee what you expect to save as far as in interest on our bonds by doing it this way?
Sure. So through the chair to the committee, I did have our financial advisors run a hypothetical based on current market conditions on $35 million that we're not borrowing this year. So this year alone, by not borrowing those funds, there's between $2.3 and $2.4 million in debt service that we will not be spending for next year. And then over time, $34 million, $35 million, if you run the analysis, turns into about $68 million over 30 years. So it just emphasizes the importance of making sure that we're aligned in terms of when we're borrowing and when we're actually executing contracts for projects.
Okay, so just, to give us a better understanding, every year that we do this, what can we potentially save as far as interest on our bonds every year that we do this? Can we realize a savings every single year? Or can you explain that, Director?
So through to the chair to the committee, that would vary every year.
That would vary.
You'd have to look at what we would normally do in our process and what VOCAP's actual project list is. And then at the end of the year, you'd have to look at what we actually got accomplished and borrowed for and kind of compare those.
Okay.
But really, this is mostly about alignment and making sure that we're not borrowing and then having funds that aren't being spent down in a timely manner.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go to Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to our Finance Director, just so that we're following this correctly, 2025, the project's in yellow. We're just going to assume everything's going to get done. Okay, we'll just be under that assumption. Okay.
And through the chairman of the councilman, purchased or under contract? Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Purchased under contract,
Yep.
ready to go.
Ready to go,
All
yeah.
right. So we're paying with those because you're going to go out for a bond, correct? That 36 million for the projects in yellow now, are we going out to bond for those?
Yeah, through the chair to the councilman, if I'm understanding your question, yes, everything in yellow, that is what we're going at.
You're going out later this year or whatever, right?
Yeah,
With the
within,
bond to pay for the things that are highlighted in yellow, okay? Now, the ones that are not highlighted in yellow, which is really the 2026 projects, okay? You're going to pay with those up front, correct, with reserve money, and then go out at the end of the year to bond so that we can recover the money that we're fronting. I just want to make sure I'm correct in that.
yeah, through the chair to the councilman, that's correct, that's our plan. We will need to come back to council for all that.
I understand that. So I just want to ask a question. The question is that can we go out to bond later next year for a project that we've already paid for? So wouldn't this be a different type of bond? I mean, it's almost a reimbursable bond and not a bridge bond or a street bond or roads or anything like that. Because we fronted the money up front, right, the project's paid for. Now we're just looking at recoup. So how can we, Mr. Chairman, Finance Director, ask for a bond for a project that's already been paid for under contract or potentially done?
Yeah, so through the chair to the councilman, this has all been run through bond council and their advisors.
And just for the record, none of us are on bond council, none of us are bond experts. We're just asking questions. So we're glad that we have experts in the bond stuff like that, but just so that when you're giving us information, it's got to be at not a bond level because they're experts and we just need to know it so that we can go back to our residents or even the city that's watching now so that they can understand it as well.
Yeah, so through the chair to the councilman, the general idea is that we would use cash on hand, and as long as you have a funding source, so Ohio state law says that you have to have a source when you execute a contract, so there has to be something backing that in terms of cash. So if we pledge our available cash, and again, this isn't just work that's getting done. Ohio state law says that any contract that's executed, you need to have those funds available. So a lot of, in yellow, the contracts will be executed, but the projects won't necessarily be done. But we're going to need to have cash available, and that's why we want to go out and borrow for these now before the contracts get executed. But that's the general idea is, go out and use that cash, that available cash, so that'll meet the requirements of Ohio state law that will have a source backing these projects, and then at the end of the year, we will essentially pay ourselves back by doing a bond issuance.
Mr. Chairman, to the Finance Director, I understand that. The question is that legal? Can we go out and bond to reimburse ourselves back? So we're taking we'll do round numbers. So next year you're taking we're just going to say $40 million. It's 36 million and some change. You're taking that $40 million, Mr. Chairman, to the Finance Director, for where? Where's it going?
So through the chair of the councilman, when we go to pass the budget, we're looking at a few sources. The big one would be the carryover for the general fund. So we would need to get permission from council to use that to backstop. We're also looking at available funds that are in projects now, maybe some projects that aren't going to get done anymore, or some funds that are excess that aren't going to get spent on that particular project, and see if we can use those. So those are the primary, and then we're looking at a short-term program that we're going to bring to council. We're working on a debt policy that we had discussed in some of the workshops that kind of outline some of this. And so we will have the cash backstops that we need in order to implement this.
All right, Mr. Chairman, the Finance Director, I understand the carryover is just money that we didn't spend this year, correct? That's carryover. Is any of this rainy day money? the 200 and some million that we have in the rainy day fund, or that additional, we won't call it a second rainy day fund, but I forgot what we call it, but that pot of money as well.
Yeah, through the chair to the councilman, it does not include those. Those have specific purposes, and we couldn't do anything without council action.
No, I realize you can't do anything without council action, but the rainy day fund doesn't have a specific purpose. It's just, there's, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chairman, the finance director, that rainy day fund has not been, at least in your mind, in the administration's mind, allocated for anything.
Through the chair to the councilman, I believe the law, or I don't want to speak if it's an ordinance, but the law basically states a rainy day fund must be used for an emergency.
Right.
But there's not a specific.
Right, so Mr. Chairman, the finance director, what I'm sitting here saying is, right, it's an emergency fund, heaven forbid our tax revenue falls or something, we need to make payroll. We understand stuff like that. But you're sitting here today saying none of that money has been, in the mind of the administration, specifically allocated for some bigger grand vision that the administration may have.
Through the chair to the councilman, I'm not aware. I mean, it's for that purpose stated.
Okay. And then, Mr. Chairman, to the finance director and to the director, I just want to make sure that we're allowed next year to go out to bond for these type of bonds, the roads and bridges and everything, knowing the specific purpose that we're going to be reimbursing ourselves, and that whoever the bond, people are buying the bond, knows that it's not going to that specific project, it is actually going to reimburse the city. That, I mean, I don't know that answer, that, and if you don't know that answer, you gotta let us know, but you're telling us today that if we pass this legislation, right, that we're not passing anything that's going to be illegal down the line because we're reimbursing ourselves and not, that bond is not going for the specific project.
Through the chair to the councilman, that's correct. We confirmed that with bond counsel that this whole program is legal.
Okay. Just a couple of real quick questions regarding the specifics on here now. Where's the new SWAT headquarters?
So through the chairman and the councilman, if you go to page 2, about halfway down, you'll see the new SWAT.
No, I see it on here. Where the physical building is. Where is the new? I don't know where it is.
Mr. Chairman and the councilman, there was some request from public safety to discuss that outside of the public forum of the table, but happy to do that with any council member, yes.
And then, I think we spoke on this last Monday, City Hall modernization phase 1, right? The $7 million. Can we get a list? When we hear we're going to modernize City Hall, we didn't think it was going to be spending $600,000 on signs, right? I think we had a little bit of a different understanding of modernizing City Hall. Can you give us the specifics of what we're going to do with the $7 million to modernize City Hall?
Through the chairman and the councilman, absolutely, and I will highlight for you that this one major element of this came from your challenge to us as we were coming before council to do the exterior of City Hall, and you challenged us to figure out a way to have an ADA accessible entrance at the front of City Hall. And so what this does is it creates a very accessible entrance on the mall side of City Hall, on the west side of City Hall, using doors and entrances that already exist, but creating a pavilion to, or I should say a shelter so that people can get dropped off, an ADA accessible entrance, stairs as well as ramps to get inside. And I'll give you, and all of council, a more detailed list of this, but it includes a public meeting room that's a new security station, a coffee shop, things like that that are at that new entrance of City Hall. And like I said, one of the main reasons that we're doing this is to really clean up the queue that happens back with people trying to get into City Hall, but also more importantly to have that ADA accessible entrance to City Hall.
The ADA accessible entrance, Mr. Chairman and Director, has been overly important, and it's too long in the waiting. This building's 125 years old. It's still difficult for anybody who has a disability, a mobile disability, to get into this building. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm trying to move quick through my questions. The street resurfacing, how come we went out for bond? Why didn't we just use rollover or carryover or rainy day fund for that? Because I can probably guarantee that this council's going to ask for more money for street resurfacing for this upcoming year. I can't guarantee it, but it's a high priority. So why are we bonding this out instead of using our rainy day funds or our carryover? Mr. Chairman, to be the director.
Yeah, so through the chair to the councilman, first off, we're not using rainy day, I just want to clarify that. And then again, this is the transition year to where we're transitioning to the new program. So in order, anything that we're going to spend, anything we're going to execute a contract on the rest of the year, we're going out and borrowing basically in October, early November for that, just to make sure that we have the cash and we can get his projects done. So this should be the last time that we go out and borrow in advance of executing contracts. But again, this is the transition year. So next year we will have a regular cycle of CIP borrowing. But for now, we need to make sure that MoCap has the funds available to execute contracts they need to this year.
All right, well, Mr. Chairman, to both directors, I can't guarantee it, but I think with the little bit of money that the administration puts into streets, and knowing on this side of the table the problem that streets has become with us, with the condition of the streets, we probably anticipate a large ask for at least the next couple of years. Just put it in the back of your mind so that when you're planning. The Circle East District improvement, that's water and sewer line replacements. How come that's general fund and it's not coming out of enterprise fund for water and sewer?
Through the chairman of the councilman, no, those are roadway improvements. This is for the little piece of Cleveland that is south of Euclid Avenue and right next to the Lakeview Cemetery. There's a little corner of Cleveland that you have to get through East Cleveland to get to. And there's a project, a 3-year project there for infill housing. And this is specifically for the roadway work that's needed for the area where they're building that infill housing. It's a little piece of Ward 6 that is just the geography is weird because of the cemetery.
I understand that, but for new housing, Mr. Chairman, to the director, but if there's new housing going in, project, when we put new houses up in my ward, the builder's responsible for the infrastructure of the sewer and the water. Mm-hmm. So I want to make sure that we're not doing a special favor for whoever's building this, and I don't know the project, that we're covering the cost of sewer and water lines going into whatever this project is, because that has not been like that in the past.
No, through the chairman of the councilman, the roads, in all of the roads are in poor condition. This is for roadway improvements, not for sewer and water improvements.
But that's not what this says. This says work includes water and sewer line replacing.
Oh, yes, so through the chairman and the councilman, their overall work plan does include that. I apologize about the confusion, but our 375,000 does not, I should have rephrased that. Their overall work plan for Circle East includes that, but our money is only going into roadway improvements. Do you want to, yeah.
I'll trust you, but you also know that I'm going to keep an eye on it.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, and then my last one, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize if I went over this. Last Monday, you were going to give us the list of all the vehicles.
Yes, so through the chairman and the councilman, so the list of vehicles is in the ordinance, but we did have to make an amendment to that list just this morning. So I'm going to have Assistant Director Chambers speak to that. I will say that the spreadsheet that you're looking at has the correct amounts. But we had, until this morning, we had incorrect amounts that didn't match the Department of Finance's threshold, the dollar amount thresholds. So Assistant Director Chambers is going to review what we're amending.
What were the numbers,
So, Mr. Chairman, the light vehicles is 675, 2025, or excuse me, the heavy vehicles is 675, 2025, and the light vehicles is 673,
So it's gotta be
2025.
Those are finance numbers, you got our numbers.
Oh, sorry, 853, 2025 is light, excuse me, and 852, 2025 is heavy.
As Director mentioned, the numbers in the spreadsheet that you have for light-duty vehicles, that total amount is $2,830,000. Because cost of issuance was removed, we had to change the actual purchase of vehicles. So we worked very diligently with motor vehicles maintenance to revise that list. I have it here if you actually want to see the list, or I can go through the list for light vehicles. For we have a light truck pickup. Yep, and we do have the commissioner, she's still there, or they're outside, but we have motor vehicles maintenance commissioner here to review these as well. But for all the divisions, I can read them off. For light trucks, for waste collection, they will be receiving a pickup in the amount of $240,000. And if you don't have these in front of you now, we are actually updating everything through our legislation liaison now, Nancy Gonzalo, to get it to you so we can have that amendment made. But I don't know what the best approach is for this, but we just had to change numbers to make sure that we match finance's request.
Can we make a copy of that?
I can, I make copies.
Okay, yeah.
And I'll give it to you and I'll explain.
Thank you.
And then I got two more down there. Yeah. Kenny, thank you. Thank you.
You'll see a couple of columns here. I want you to focus on the ones to the far right. Those were the updates we just made. And that identifies the vehicles, heavy and light, that they are requesting to purchase through bond sales. So we're at $1,150,000 for heavy vehicles, $2,830,000 for light vehicles.
Okay, Brian, Casey, you still got any questions?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so just to get this straight on this list here so we can understand this, we're changing from, what total is we changing from and we're writing in a new total on this list?
Yes, so you will see the 4 columns to the far right, 2 say heavy and light, and the other one says heavy and light.
Right.
We're only following the one on the far right. So we have changed from the ones next to it to the ones on the far right.
So, Mr. Chairman, for light vehicles, we're moving from $3 million to $2,690,000, and for heavy, we're moving from $2 million to $1,290,000.
And there are changes in these allocations because motor vehicle maintenance wanted to make sure that they were able to order or purchase some of the long lead items prior to 2026. So we kind of reallocated their funding to make sure they could do that.
Wow. Director, can you say that again? I'm trying to get this straight. Can you explain that again?
So, Mr. Chairman, so the legislation as it's drafted, prior to the changes that we're attempting to make, we included the issuance fees in that total, which means that our numbers were off. So we had in the light vehicle ordinance a total of $3 million for purchase of vehicles. but we had to take out the issuance fees, and so the balance that we have to actually spend is $2,690,000. Assistant Director Chambers worked with the Commissioner of DMV to reduce his vehicle list to match that that dollar amount. And similarly, for heavy vehicles, it was originally a $2 million budget, and we took out the issuance fees, so we're down to $1,290,000 for light or for heavy vehicles.
That's what your spreadsheet showed. It showed.
Yeah.
All right, is there any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Councilwoman Gray.
Thank you, Chair. Here on the page road and bridge bonds, that's page 3. We have here Shaker Boulevard, on Buckeye Avenue. That is going to be, you said design fees. Could you explain the details about that? And you got that for the...
Can you talk to the mic, Councilwoman?
I'm sorry. Could you explain Shaker Boulevard and Buckeye Avenue, that's going to be a carryover request? So could you explain a little bit more?
Yes, ma'am.
We can discuss that prior to that resurfacing.
Yes, through the chairman of the councilwoman. So Shaker Boulevard needs resurfacing, and the limits of that is Shaker Heights all the way to Buckeye Avenue, so the whole length that's within the city of Cleveland. We just applied for funding through the state of Ohio to fund that project, and this amount, the $200,000, will be spent on designing that roadway. And so we've made some we've completed some design work, but we need an additional $200,000 to complete the design work, so that, fingers crossed, if the state awards us the funding, we can finish the design. And I don't have in my head the year of that project, but I believe it would be, let's see, funding in 6, I think it would be a 2027 construction year for that project.
So that's Chair to the director, that's going to be the west and east of Shaker Boulevard, from 116th and Buckeye to Shaker Heights at the end of Coventry.
Through the chairman and the councilwoman, yes, both east and westbound, yes. Yes. Yep, and all the way through, obviously through Shaker Square.
Shaker Square. Okay, thank you for that. And the second question, here on page 4, you also chair to the director, you also have Van Aiken Boulevard, Shaker Boulevard to South Woodland, local master roadway resurfacing. Could you explain that as well?
Yes, so the Van Aiken Boulevard, which I know we've discussed and have been at the community meetings. So we need, so the local match means that we have funding through NOACA to resurface that roadway, rebuild that roadway. And we need more than this $83,000. But that was the portion that was scheduled for 2025, and the remainder would be in 2026. And the local match means that we have to put in usually 20% of the construction costs as the city of Cleveland versus what NOACA offers to us for the roadway construction. So the fact that this $82,000 will now be 2026, what you're going to see is both what we had originally proposed for 2026 and then this $82,000 combined into one larger dollar amount, because Van Aiken is intended also for a 2027 construction year. And then the piece of Van Aken where the railroad tracks at Shaker Square happens, that will be reconstructed by RTA. And the same project here, and we're coordinating with them so that all of Van Aken will get done.
Wonderful.
Yep.
We have some issues now concerning that intersection. That
Yes.
A lot of residents that live in that area is constantly calling and talking with Commissioner Babbitt concerning that the track overlay over the roads over there, and has been a big problem with traffic.
Yes. And through the...
There to the director, sorry.
And Chair to the Councilwoman, we agree. We're glad that Van Aken as a roadway has been programmed through NOACA for several years. It's just time, that the money's available. But the railroad track area took some time to work through, and RTA, we're thankful that they stepped up and they're going to resurface that portion of it. And it's, kind of in between their tracks, but they took that on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Graves. Any other questions on this presentation? Councilman Danny Kelly?
To the Chair, to the Director, thank you. You went over the monetary stuff pretty well. These questions are asked. Just what I want to ask, possibly, because now when you're going to get the money for something that's contracted to sign, I get excited when something's ready. My residents get excited when something's ready, but sometimes it might take 2 seasons to get done.
Yes.
Do you see any benefit in this, that once the money is contracted and signed, you're getting that'll be done maybe in a more timely manner?
Yeah, through the Chairman of the Councilman, that is a great question, because it is one of the things that the change of how we're funding projects is really going to help how we're signaling to council and the community when a project will get done. Because like you said, if we fund a project this year, but we're not even anticipating needing the money until next year, and then it might take another year for the project to start, it just sends out signals, and people ask questions about why it's taking so long to get from point A to point B, from funding to the work. So absolutely, this new system should help with being more transparent about when we need money and when we're going to start those projects. I will say that we're also working on we're working with our urban analytics department to create a funding spending tracker, which should be visible to everyone to see if South Waterloo Road gets funded, when we start spending on that project. So that even if you don't see anything on the roadway, and we're spending money, say, on design, you'll see that project has started, versus if it's just, zero spending, the project hasn't started. But we're trying a lot of different things to try to both do projects more in a more timely fashion after funding is approved, not waste money on bonds when we don't need the bonds to be sold yet, and also to be more transparent with the public on what projects are underway, which ones are finished, and which ones haven't started yet.
And through the Chair to the Councilman, if I could just add, in terms of speeding up the process, since now we won't have to wait to actually do a bond deal to execute and start a contract, we're just going to get authorization from council on full CIP, so we'll be authorized to spend, and then we'll just need the funding source to be cash on hand when we bring that. So we can start looking at executing contracts and doing the project as soon as you all approve that in January, and then we're just reimbursing ourselves with bonds. So the bond process is typically a 4 to 6 month process with talking to agencies, doing all the paperwork. Now we're cutting that out. So it's just about getting the CIP created and approved in January.
So through the Chairman of the Councilman, if I could use a real life example, so the roof of the skating center. Last year, we went through City Council in the summertime to approve that roof. By the time that we got it put out to bid and under contract, all we could do before the wintertime was basically just tarp it to make sure it wasn't going to leak. Whereas if that roof was on next year's CIP, on the capital improvement plan, in, say, January, it would be approved by council as a project. then we're not missing the whole construction season by coming to you in the summertime. So by coming to you in the winter, we can tee up both roadway projects and any exterior park or facility projects in a more timely fashion and not pay for bonds during a winter time when you can't really do any work. Does that help?
Through the chair, that's, hopefully it works that way. We
Yeah.
get excited, because it just seems like it takes 2-3 seasons to get something done, and my resident gets so excited, and then they're waiting, and they say, well, what's going on? So,
Yes.
besides the monetary aspect of it, the way you're bidding it out and doing it, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Councilman Kelly. All right, I am going to read into the record the bond pieces that we have before us today. Ordinance number 846, 2025. By Council Members Bishop and Griffin, is a departmental request, an emergency ordinance to determine the method of making the public improvements of designing, constructing, or constructing, rehabilitating, renovating, replacing, or otherwise improving public facilities, buildings, and other similar structures, including site improvements and apparatuses, and authorizing the Director of Public Safety, Public Works, or Capital Projects as appropriate to enter into one or more public improvement contracts for the making of the improvements, enter into one or more professional services and other contracts needed to implement the improvements, to apply for, to accept grants and gifts, and authorize direct employment of the necessary labor for the Department of Public Safety, Public Works, or the Office of Capital Projects. All right. And also, I'm going to read into the record the amendments on ordinance number 846, 2025. There's no legal objections to this legislation if amended as follows. Number 1, in section 9, line 2, after no's, insert 01 SF 001. In line 4, after 20 SF 728, insert appropriate available bond funds. In line 5, after 2025, insert and 2026. In line 10, strike no and insert no's 01 SF 001. In line 12, after 20 SF 728, insert appropriate available bond funds, and in line 13, strike future and insert 2025 and 2026. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I think there might be one piece of the amendment that didn't get read. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to change what I just read. Okay, I just read it.
There's an amendment to the amendment. Yeah.
This is the second one. So you just read the first amendment, now you're gonna read the amendment to the amendment on the second one. So you have to just say that into the record.
To the teacher?
Yes. You just read all this, and you just read that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta read that into the record. And the council amendment come back and get that from you. And then it's just all amendments, right?
So you can read it.
No, you read this part and then I'll bring that in.
Okay. So, under amendments to the law amendments, strike 01 SF 001 in both instances and add appropriate available bond or note funds. All right, that's right. Okay? All right. Councilman Starr.
I'd like to make an amendment.
All right, Councilman Starr.
Council amend section 1 at the improvements, insert file 846-2025A. In sections 5, line 4 strike, to be determined by the Director of Public Safety, Public Works, or Director of Capital Projects as appropriate, and replaced with not to exceed 2 years. At the end of section 7, insert the Director of Public Works shall provide written notice to the clerk of council whenever any purchases is made through the cooperative process, which notice shall include the details of such cooperative purchases. In section 9, strike and shall also be charged against the proper appropriations account, the fund or funds to which are credited to proceed from the sale of future bonds if issued for this purpose, and any other funds deemed appropriate by the finance director.
All right, Councilman Starr has offered an amendment. Is there a second for that amendment? All right, Councilman Harrison seconds that amendment. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Councilman Harrison.
in the further clarification on the cease and desist as you agreed, maybe if I could understand it, I would approve that.
Can you repeat that?
I said, we agreed, maybe I just, you can't look at the room and not sure if everyone is understanding what the amendment is a process, so maybe we
Explain.
but officials maybe just leave a brief overview of what the amendment is, and he just asked for.
The purpose of it. The purpose of the amendments. Yeah.
All right, okay, Councilman Starr.
Yes, so for the purpose of ordinance number 846-2025, first the administration asked for amendments to make sure we are able to pull the funds from the right bonds or the financial department where the funds are currently at. But then in the second section that I made some amendments is so that we have clear oversight of how much the administration is spending, where the funds are coming from. Prime example, making sure the Director of Public Safety is pulling the actual right funding source and not using it as often or as freely, so council can have the oversight. And then at the section 7, where it was talking about the Director of Public Works, so therefore if anything changes, they bring a note to the clerk of council so that the council is informed on what is actually going on. And then also just making sure there is some restrictions on how much funds the Director of the Finance can actually pull in the future funds.
All right, is there any other question? All right, so the amendment that Councilman Starr has offered, is there any discussion? All right, Councilwoman Mark.
Thank you. I just want to confirm that the administration is in support and willing to comply with that amendment.
Through the chairman of the councilman, thank you for asking that. We're aware of the changes. We understand that council wants more control over when changes are made. So we're okay with this, and we'll comply with it. Yes. Yeah.
And you would have had to, but it is feasible. It's feasible for you to comply. That's my question, not whether you're willing to.
Yes. Through the chairman of the councilman, it is feasible for us to comply. We will have to change how we do business, if you will, but it is feasible. Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right, so those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, ayes have it. So ordinance number 846-2025 as amended is approved. Please sign it. All right, next is ordinance. Next is ordinance number 847. 2025 by Council Members Bishop and Griffin. This is the departmental request. An emergency ordinance determining the method of making the public improvements of designing, constructing, rehabilitating, renovating, replacing, or otherwise improving recreation facilities, ancillary recreation buildings, parks, and playgrounds, and other similar structures and amenities on city-owned and city-leased park property, including site improvements and appurtenances, and authorizing the Director of Parks and Recreation, Public Works, or capital projects as appropriate to enter into one or more public improvement contracts and/or one or more public improvement requirements contracts for the making of the improvements, enter into one or more professional services and other contracts needed to implement the improvement, to apply for and accept grants and gifts, and authorizing the direct employment of necessary labor for the Departments of Parks and Recreation and Public Works or the Office of Capital Projects. Now 847-2025 as amended. And let me read the amendments. There is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. In section 12, line 2, after nose, insert 01 SF001. In line 3, after 20 SF727, insert appropriate available bond funds. In line 4, after 2025, insert and 2026. In line 10, strike no and insert nose 01 SF001. In line 11, after 20 SF727, insert appropriate available bond funds. And in line 12, after 2025, insert and 2026. Okay. This is yours, man. So on the amendments, strike 01 SF001 in both instances and add appropriate available bond or note funds. Okay? All right. Councilman Starr.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to make a couple amendments for ordinance number 847-2025. In the section 1, after facility improvement, insert file number 847-2025A. In section 2, after park improvement, insert file number 847-2025A. And then in section 4, strike the specified terms and replace with 2 years. At the end of section 10, insert the directors of Park and Recreation, Public Works, or capital projects as appropriate shall provide written notice to the clerk of council whenever any purchases is made through cooperative process, which notice shall include the details of such cooperative purchases. In section 12, after 20 SF71, insert 4. In section 12, strike 01 SF001 and shall also be charged against the proper appropriation accounts and any other funds deemed appropriate by the Director of Finance.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Starr. Okay, Councilman Starr has offered an amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Kelly seconds it?
Yes.
Is there any discussion?
Explain it.
Okay, Councilman Starr wants to explain the amendment.
Yeah, just for the discussion of everything, one, in the first part of it from section 1, section 2, wanted to make sure we have the appropriate file numbers on the ordinance of the amendments within the legislation before us on 847-2025, and then also in that section 10 part is an opportunity for us to be notified of any changes on what type of process that the administration may need to be able to pull funds from, and then also making sure they do not exceed any of the amount of dollars that is already approved through this legislation.
All right. Director, you want to make a comment?
Through the chairman, the councilman, just to highlight that adding the legislative file number documents the project list so that we can't deviate from that project list. So if a councilman has a request for a certain project or to match funds or whatnot, we would have to come through council for specific legislation to put money towards that project if it's not on the approved list.
All right. Is any other, so Councilman Starr's amendment, is there any other discussion on Councilman Starr's amendment? All in favor of Councilman Starr's amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment carries. All right, ordinance number 847-2025 as amended is approved. Please sign it. Next up, we have ordinance number 848-2025 as amended by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance determining the method of making the public improvement of designing and constructing, rehabilitating, renovating, replacing, or otherwise improving roadways, streets, bridges, sidewalks, and other projects, including site improvements and opportunities, and authorizing the Director of Public Works or Capital Projects as appropriate to enter into one or more public improvement contracts for the making of the improvements, enter into one or more professional services and other contracts needed to implement the improvements, to apply for, accept grants and gifts, and authorizing the direct employment of the necessary labor for the Department of Public Works or the Office of Capital Projects. Okay, I'm going to read the amendment. In section 9, strike line 2 after NOS and insert 01SF001. In line 3, after 20 SF 729, insert appropriate available bond funds. In line 4, after 2025, insert and 2026. In line 9, after fund, insert NOS 01 SF 001. In line 11, after 20 SF 729, insert appropriate available bond funds. And in line 12, after 2025, insert and 2026. And also strike 01 SF 001 in both instances and add appropriate available bond or note funds. All right. All right, now I'm going to go to Councilman Richard Starr.
Thanks, Chair. I would like to make a motion for some amendments. In section 1, after improvements, insert file number 848-2025A. In section 4, strike to be determined by the Director of Public Works or Capital Projects as appropriate and replaced with not to exceed 2 years. At the end of section 7, insert the Directors of Public Works or Capital Projects as appropriate shall provide written notice to the Clerk of Council whenever any purchases is made through cooperative process, which notice shall include the details of such cooperative purchases. In Section 9, strike, and shall also be charged against the proper appropriation accounts and any other funds deemed appropriate by the Director of Finances.
All right, okay, Councilman Starr has offered an amendment to ordinance number 848, 2025. Is there any discussion on the amendments Councilman Starr has offered? No, is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Harris seconds it. Or is there any discussion on the backwards order? Those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. All right, ordinance number 848, 2025 is approved. Please sign it as amended. Ordinance number 852, 2025, as amended by Council Members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the purchase by one or more standard and requirement contracts for the purchase, lease, or lease with options to purchase of various heavy-duty trucks and equipment for the various divisions of city government. All right, and the amendment, I'm going to read the amendment. In section 1, line 6, strike 7,765,000 and insert 2 million. In line 1, in the table, in the last line after total, strike 7,765,000 and insert 2 million. In line 7, in section 3, line 2, after NOS, insert 01SF001, appropriate available bond funds, and from the funds or funds to which are credited the proceeds from the sale of 2025, 2026 bonds if issued for this purpose. Okay. And in number 1 and number 6, change 2 million to 1.2 to 1,290,000. In line 7, strike 01SF001 and add available bond or note funds.
I'd like to make an amendment, Chair. At the end of section 2, insert the directors of public works or capital projects as appropriate shall provide written notice to the clerk of council whenever any purchases is made through the cooperative process, which notice shall include the details of such cooperative purchases. In section 3, strike 724 and replace with 723.
All right, Councilman Starr has offered an amendment. Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
All right, Councilman Kelly seconds it. Is there any discussion to Councilman Starr's amendment? Sorry.
Second? Just say second.
I already said second.
Sorry.
Is there any discussion? All right, Councilman Starr, you want to explain why this amendment is offered?
So this amendment is offered just to make sure that we have notice of any changes from the amount of funding that is used to be able to draw down funds for this purchase. In addition, some of the amendments also was incorrect as far as the dollar amount in the right sections to make sure they are appropriate with the actual bond sales as well as the funds. So just making sure everything is aligned appropriately within the way the legislation was presented to us or the ordinance has been brought to us.
All right, thank you, Councilman Starr. So, all in favor of Councilman Starr's amendment, say aye. 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 All opposed? The ayes have it. All right, ordinance number 852, 2025 is approved as amended. All right, last but not least, ordinance number 853, 2025 by council members Bishop and Griffin is a departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the purchase by one or more standard and requirement contracts for the purchase, lease, or lease with options to purchase of various light-duty vehicles and equipment for the various city divisions. And the amendments are in line 1, in number 1, in section 1, line 6, strike $7,765,000 and insert $2 million. In section 1, in the table, in the last line after total, strike $4,435,000 and insert $3 million. Number 10, in section 3, line 2, after NOS, insert 01SF001, appropriate available bond funds from the fund or funds to which are credited the proceeds from the sale of 2025-2026 bonds if issued for this purpose. And in line 3, strike shall and insert shall. All right. In number 1 and in number 8, change 2 million to 1,290,000. And in line 10, strike 01SF001 and add available bonds or note funds. All right. All right, Councilman Richard Starr.
The amendments I would like to put up forth is at the end of section 2, insert the directors of public work or capital project as appropriate shall provide written notice to the clerk of council whenever any purchases is made through the cooperative process, which notice shall include the details of such cooperative purchases. And in section 3, strike the 723 and replace that with 724.
All right, Councilman, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, so the total amount for this ordinance should be $2,690,000. So I don't believe that's the number that you read.
So say that number again.
$2,690,000, correct?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think the number that was read was for the last ordinance, 852. We changed that to 1.29 million. This ordinance, we should be moving for the light vehicles, we should be moving from 3 million to 2.69 million.
So within the amendment,
Still, this number's still on there. We don't have those numbers. So this is 2,690,000.
yeah, they saying there's only 2 million.
Yeah.
So do we need to read that right now? Okay, some books say that's how far it should be that. 6.9. Yeah, so that should be 269 right here instead of that 2 million.
All right, Councilman Starr.
In addition, in section 1, line 6, strike $7,765,000 and insert $2,690,000.
All right, Director? All right,
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
all right, any other, so Councilman Starr has offered an amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Casey seconds. Is there any discussion? All right, those in favor of Councilman Starr's amendment say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, ordinance number 853-2025 is approved as amended. All right, is there any other questions on the, for the Director and the Director of Finance? Is there any questions? All right, Director, do you have any comments before we close out?
Mr. Chairman, just thank you to you and your staff for going through all the changes that we're making this time. Next year will be more straightforward because it'll be the new process. Right now, we're sort of changing streams of how we're processing improvement projects.
Yeah, Director, I'm not exactly sure what we could have did any differently. I thought we would have a better, easier flow for the legislation. But nonetheless, we got it done. Is there any miscellaneous for the Director of Capital Projects before we adjourn? All right, seeing no further questions, I hereby adjourn for this service. That's all, Chair.
Sit here for another 20 minutes.
My name is Jenny Spencer, and I am so proud to offer a welcome today on behalf of all the members of Cleveland City Council. We are delighted to launch